The Han Dynasty established formal diplomatic and trade connections, allowing Chinese merchants to trade silk, jade, paper, and spices with Central Asian and Middle Eastern traders. In return, they received horses, glassware, and precious metals. Merchants traveled through treacherous landscapes, from the harsh Gobi Desert to the high peaks of the Pamir Mountains, facing bandits, severe climates, and geopolitical rivalries. Alongside the exchange of goods, the Silk Road was a conduit for ideas and religions. Buddhism spread from India to China, while knowledge of astrology, medicine, and mathematics moved westward. Artifacts from diverse cultures were found along the Silk Road, blending styles and symbolizing the interconnectedness of ancient societies. Chapter 5. The Phoenicians, masters of maritime trade. The Phoenicians, a seafaring people from the Levantine coast, modern-day Lebanon, dominated Mediterranean trade from around 1500 to 300 BCE. Expert shipbuilders and navigators, the Phoenicians sailed to places as far as Britain and West Africa, establishing colonies and trading posts across the Mediterranean. Their chief cities, Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos, became centers of commerce, where traders exchanged goods like purple dye, glassware, and wine. The Phoenicians' purple dye, derived from the murex shell, became a symbol of royalty due to its high cost and rarity. Their glass-blowing techniques were unparalleled, and Phoenician glass was in high demand. Their alphabet, a phonetic writing system, spread across the Mediterranean and became the precursor to Greek and Latin alphabets. Their voyages were legendary, and the Phoenicians established Carthage, which grew into a major trading empire. Through their exploration and commercial acumen, they helped to create a connected Mediterranean economy, facilitating cultural exchange between disparate regions and laying the groundwork for modern maritime trade. Chapter 6. The Roman Empire and Pax Romana's trade networks. With the rise of the Roman Empire, the Mediterranean became an interconnected economic hub. Rome's conquests expanded trade routes from the British Isles to North Africa, the Middle East, and beyond. The Roman road network allowed for efficient overland travel, facilitating the movement of goods, armies, and information across the empire. This period, known as the Pax Romana, provided relative stability that made trade safer and more predictable. Roman trade networks were vast, covering regions from the deserts of Egypt to the forests of Germania. The empire imported silk from China, spices from India, and glass from Syria. The Roman elite enjoyed luxuries such as pearls, ivory, and perfumes, showcasing their wealth with imported goods. Rome became a major consumer of olive oil, grain, and wine, necessitating vast agricultural networks to feed its populace. Roman coins became a standard currency across much of Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa, facilitating international trade. Roman merchants and traders left a lasting legacy in business practices, currency standardization, and infrastructure that influenced economies long after the empire's fall. Chapter 7. Africa's Rich Kingdoms and the Gold Salt Trade. While much of ancient trade focused on Eurasia, Africa was home to prosperous kingdoms whose trade networks brought wealth and innovation. West African kingdoms like Ghana and later Mali thrived on the gold salt trade, which connected North Africa to sub-Saharan Africa via the Sahara Desert. The salt mines of the Sahara and the gold mines of West Africa fueled a lucrative trade network. Camel caravans, capable of traversing vast desert expanses, transported blocks of salt south in exchange for gold, which was abundant in regions like Bambouk and Wangara. The Kingdom of Ghana, flourishing from the 6th to the 13th century, grew wealthy by taxing this trade, establishing itself as a powerful economic force. With the rise of Islam, Muslim traders brought religion and literacy, linking West Africa to the broader Islamic world. Timbuktu, in the Mali Empire, became a center of learning and culture. This trade enriched African societies, establishing a legacy of wealth, culture, and intellectual pursuits that would shape the region for centuries. Chapter 8. The Spice Trade of the Indian Ocean. The Indian Ocean was an ancient trade highway that connected Africa, the Middle East, India, and Southeast Asia. Long before European explorers reached the East, Arab, Indian, and Southeast Asian merchants sailed monsoon winds, establishing trade routes for spices, textiles, and gems. Trade routes and treasures, the rise of ancient global business. In the ancient world, trade was the lifeblood of civilization, connecting distant cultures and fueling the rise of empires. Overland routes, treacherous mountain passes, and vast seas were traversed by daring merchants carrying goods, ideas, and technologies across continents. Alongside the goods came new languages, religions, and inventions, each shaping and enriching societies. This is the story of how ancient trade routes not only fueled the rise of empires, but also laid the groundwork for the complex global economy we know today. Chapter 1. The Fertile Crescent and the First Traders. The first known trade networks emerged in Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, around 3000 BCE. Situated between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the fertile lands of Sumer and Akkad became bustling centers for agriculture and trade. Here, early merchants pioneered bartering systems, exchanging grain, livestock, and textiles for precious resources not found in their own lands. The city-state of Ur, located near the Persian Gulf, served as an early hub, its harbor crowded with merchants' boats. Copper from the mountains of Anatolia, timber from Lebanon, and lapis lazuli from as far as Afghanistan found their way to Ur's bustling markets. The famed royal tombs of Ur, filled with artifacts of gold and precious stones, showcased the wealth these early trade connections generated. These early trade networks fostered the development of writing systems, such as cuneiform, initially used for recording transactions. Contracts, inventories, and receipts in clay tablets became an integral part of trade, creating one of history's first organized commercial systems. Chapter 2. The Egyptian Nile and Red Sea Trade Networks. While Mesopotamia thrived in the east, ancient Egypt rose along the Nile, benefiting from trade with both African and Mediterranean civilizations. By 2000 BCE, the Egyptians had established robust trade networks, importing ivory, gold, and exotic animals from Nubia in the south. The Nile was Egypt's natural trade highway, enabling swift transport of goods and connecting distant regions. Pharaohs launched expeditions to the fabled land of Punt, located somewhere along the Red Sea or beyond. The Egyptians imported precious incense, myrrh, and rare woods from Punt, treasures that held both commercial and religious value. Egyptian art vividly depicted these expeditions, showing ships laden with rare goods arriving at Egypt's shores. The Egyptians also maintained trade connections with the Levant, importing cedar wood from Lebanon and wine from Canaan. Egyptian temples and tombs bear witness to these exchanges, filled with artifacts and symbols of foreign lands. These connections enriched Egypt's economy, bringing luxury goods that became symbols of status among the Egyptian elite. Chapter 3. The Indus Valley Civilization and Ancient Trade with Mesopotamia. To the east of Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley Civilization, circa 3,300 to 1,300 BCE, emerged in what is now Pakistan and northwest India. Cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro were well-planned urban centers with advanced infrastructure, showcasing a sophisticated society. Evidence of trade between the Indus Valley and Mesopotamia, particularly the city of Ur, demonstrates that early global commerce was underway. The Indus Valley people exported goods like lapis lazuli, carnelian, and other semi-precious stones, as well as textiles and pottery. They traded through the Arabian Sea and overland routes, using seals inscribed with distinctive symbols as a form of brand or authentication. These seals, bearing images of animals and undeciphered script, have been found as far away as Mesopotamia, suggesting well-established trade networks. In exchange, the Indus Valley imported silver, copper, and possibly tin, which was essential for creating bronze. The trade with Mesopotamia created economic interdependence, strengthening both civilizations. The Indus Valley's influence spread beyond commerce, introducing art styles, motifs, and innovations to other regions. Chapter 4. The Silk Road, connecting East and West. The Silk Road, which began around the 2nd century BCE, was perhaps the most famous ancient trade network. Spanning thousands of miles from China to the Mediterranean, it wasn't a single road, but a web of interconnected routes that transported not only silk, but countless other goods and ideas. Chinese silk, treasured for its softness and durability, became the luxury fabric of choice across Asia, the Middle East, and eventually Rome.